Join the conversation on criminal justice. Visit our website at listenuptv.com. You'll find video clips, blogs, and information to take you deeper on this and other issues. That's listenuptv.com. Listen Up is back, and in the wake of Canada's crackdown on crime, we're looking closely at the needs of prisons and prisoners. Ricky Ratliff met up with a group that works behind the walls of Canada's prisons.
Yeah, I believe that we should have a lot less prisons, that's for sure.
Chris's ideas stem from over 20 years of experience working within Canada's criminal justice system.
I believe that there's a very high percentage of people who we have in prisons that don't belong in prisons, and that if we were beginning to do things in a more restorative way right from the very beginning, then we would have fewer and fewer people who actually require being isolated for periods of time in order to be able to really help them.
Community Justice Initiatives represents one of many organizations working to meet the needs of people affected by crime. From victims, criminals, to the community, restorative justice is at the heart of everything they do. In other words, mending the broken and making wrong things right.
One of the very fundamental things about restorative justice is that it is about that relationships that has been damaged. And one of the things about the system is that it wants to deal with everything else other than that relationship.
Our traditional system has separated out the victims and the offenders. And the offender is then placed with a lawyer whose job it is to say why this person isn't accountable for their actions or to get them off on some sort of a technicality. So often you've got an offender who really hasn't taken responsibility for what they've done. They've really not understood the true harm that they have caused to the person that they've victimized.
This room is where victims and offenders meet face to face.
So sitting across the table from the person who caused the harm, having an opportunity to say how that harm has impacted their life, really gets them to also see who the other person is and to maybe bring some closure to that event in their life.
A lofty notion? Perhaps. But the stats show an overwhelming amount of success. 10 years after their prison release, 91% of the participants in CJI's Stride Circles program had not reoffended.
So what the system needs to come alongside are restorative justice programs that begin to address those pieces of the relationship and help the system to really achieve what it's supposed to.
In the past decade, the number of women going to prison in Canada has jumped by half. Cost a lot to house that many women. Estimated price tag, $174,000 each year for each woman. Behind the razor-wired fences of this federal prison are scores of those women serving time. 1/5 of the inmates here are serving a life sentence.
They're someone's daughter. I think a lot of the times their crimes are committed as a product of their environment, or they haven't had the same opportunities as some of us have.
Elisa and Philip know the faces of the inmates well, both having served for years as volunteers inside the women's prison.
I've learned that I've got to accept people for who they are and how they would like to frame themselves. If I make associations, and I shouldn't be doing that with them because it's so easy to stereotype and label.
As a deacon in the Catholic Church, Philip understands the government's need to employ the spiritual services of chaplains inside prison walls.
I think it's important to think of a human being as a full person. Spirituality is a major part of a person's life. It's their relationship. Because they are in a prison, that doesn't mean that relationship gets set aside. In fact, that's part of what will make them whole again.
10 years ago, I had some challenges in my life, and the people that supported me helped me to overcome those challenges. So I'm here believing in second chances for other people and hoping that they can overcome their challenges with the support and empowerment of the community.
This is the newest product that they've done, the napkins, which have been a big hit. Also the vases, some bath salts. The cork boards have probably been the biggest seller. They've really been an interest, and we've actually had trouble keeping them in stock.
In a rare show of support for the inmates at Grand Valley Institution, this local businesswoman doesn't hesitate to feature prisoner-made products in her store.
Everyone has a story, whether they're in prison or not. I don't think that matters or reflects why I would decide whether we would sell a certain product or not.
What kind of reaction do you get from your customers when they realize who it is that made these products?
And I think that there's a misrepresentation or misunderstanding of perhaps what goes on in the prison and what these women are allowed to do. So the fact that they are doing crafts, I think, is a surprise first and foremost, but I don't find any hesitation from the customers. They're really interested in the product, and I think sometimes when I tell the story, that helps seal the deal and perhaps helps make that sale.
While the government has its own sale to make on its latest Get Tough on Crime efforts, Julie makes the case for second chances and even the most violent of convicted offenders.
Living in Canada, very few of the people who go to prison will stay in prison for the rest of their life. Most people will be returning to the community. And as a community, how do we want them to return to us? Do we want them to return to us in a way that they're going to be able to live among us and participate in the community as a contributing member of society? Or are we going to further punish people as they're getting back in, giving into the community, giving more and more obstacles for them to try and overcome, which really forces them back to a lot of the lifestyle issues that got them to go to prison in the first place.
In Chris's extensive work inside jail cells, he's seen the worst of humanity, and yet.
Actually, from a Christian perspective, I think that we were created in a state of perfection. We were created good, and something has entered into our lives which has damaged that. And at the very heart of the Christian story is that what crept into our lives put us at enmity with God, and that there's a reconciliation that needs to take place.
Wilma Dirksen is a vocal leader in reconciliation through restorative justice, but she's also a victim to an unimaginable crime.
The pain of going through something like that is horrific. The darkness, the fear, just the uncertainty, the pain, the heart just breaks. And I can just go right back there to that long journey of trying to figure it out.
In the journey through the pain, she somehow found forgiveness for her daughter's murderer.
I think because I've often talked about forgiveness, people have thought that I'm permissive, and they don't understand how I am. I want to be a loving person. And what does that mean in a situation like that? And it really means that I also love the community. I love the vulnerable, and we have to be responsible in our love too. So I can't see us allowing people who we know and who have proven, people like Clifford Olson and Bernardo, and people who we know are so damaged, unfortunately. We can't allow them to be in the public arena. We need to hold the people who are out of control, and that's what we call the arms of the law. But how can we do that in a way that still values everyone? And I think that's what we're commanded and called to do, is that God has said that we've got to love everyone, even the least of these.
On display at CJI's walls is a curious capture of the face of evil. A reminder for those that work and travel these halls that behind every prison convict lies a human being with a story.
But for the people who are in prison, for the people who have been damaged by our system, it is their crime and their frailty which is put on display for everyone to see, and that's what we see. So we put them behind bars, and it's easy to resist. It's easy to be yourself and think that they're very different, but they're not.
For Listen Up TV, I'm Ricky Ratliff.
What's it like to do time for murder? From one of our own staff who knows it personally, that story next.
Well, I used to look out and think, when would I be out there again?